So in Chapter 2, we focus on the Russian realm. Russia, the country, is twice the size of Canada, which is the world's second largest country. Russia has 9 time zones, and despite its massive size, the entire realm's population numbers less than 160 million, comparable to individual countries such as Nigeria and Bangladesh. What makes Russia unique is its variety and its physiography. The Ural Mountains divide the Russian plain to the west from Siberia in the east. The Central Siberian Plateau, indicated by number 4 on the physiographic map, is one of the most sparsely populated areas in the habitable world. The Kamchatka Peninsula, lying on the Pacific Ring of Fire, is a hotbed for volcanic and earthquake activity. Russia is known for its harsh environments, and our map of climates illustrates this clearly. Russia has virtually no natural barriers from all of the Arctic air drifts that drift downward. Much of the realm suffers long, dark, freezing winters. Even the soil suffers. In the northern reaches, water in the ground is permanently frozen. We refer to this as permafrost. When we look at the population distribution, where do the people live? We see higher concentrations of people in the east. Russia is one place where climate change is already starting to have an impact, potentially by expanding the Russian realm into the Arctic. What about natural resources? Well, Russia has a ton of them, including oil and natural gas, but also coal, iron, lead, platinum, gold, and zinc. Figure 2A5 shows us gas and oil pipelines and areas of exploration, and there's still so much of this vast region that is yet to be explored. Who are the Russian people? Parts of the realm were settled by the Slavic people who called their settlements Rus and established successful settlements in the south, Kiev, and the north, Novgorod. The two eventually combined to form a prosperous state until the invasion and subsequent occupation by the Mongol Tatars. This is part of the reason that we see a lot of Eastern-style influence in Russia. The buildings, the clothing, all of that came from the Mongol influence. The Russian Empire began to take hold with the extended trade links via Moscow and Peter the Great's attempt to modernize Russia. Peter the Great built St. Petersburg, named it after himself, of course, and developed as Russia's leading port for trade. And then we get imperialist Russia, expanding and extending through conquest and railroads. The Russian Revolution occurred in 1917, and from that event, the Soviet Union was formed. So let's look at a map of the former Soviet Union. The SSR stands for Soviet Socialist Republic, and you'll also see associated republics, and those are republics within republics. The Soviet Union failed for a number of reasons, in part a poorly planned central economy, a nuclear arms race that decimated that economy. Many of the SSRs eventually desired independence, so in 1991 the Soviet Union officially ended and the SSRs became independent nations. Now we see Russia as a complex cultural mosaic. Figure 2A8 gives us a picture of the ethnicities of the people who inhabit the Russian realm. We can see a lot of diversity. Now, we still think of Russia as a realm of transition, trying to shed the Soviet legacy and compete in a globalized economy. Now let's look at the regions of Russia. Since we've already seen Russia's massive size, it makes sense that there are very distinct regions, 4 of which lie entirely inside the state Russia and include the Russian core, the southeastern frontier, Siberia, and the Russian Far East. The fifth region, which lies outside of the Russian state, is Transcaucasia, which we can see on the left of the map shaded in purple. And that's right over here. One thing that's really interesting is that since 2011, Russia has been permanently on daylight saving time. Since Moscow sees less than 8 hours of sunlight in January and more than 17 hours in June, it was decided that switching times back and forth in an environment where daylight is so highly valued put undue stress on people. And in midwinter in Moscow, the sun rises at around 10 a.m. and sets before 5 p.m. First, we're going to look at the Russian core, where much of the population is concentrated. This includes Moscow, St. Petersburg, and the Volga River. During the Soviet Union, St. Petersburg was known as Leningrad. There are 3 subregions here. We have the Central Industrial Region, the Volga region, and the Urals region. Next, we travel to the southeastern frontier, and this area is more densely populated in the west than in the east, and it's dominated by 2 subregions. The Kuznets Basin in the west and the Lake Baikal area in the east. The Kuzbaz is really rich in coal and iron ore. And then we move to Siberia. It is, of course, Russia's largest region and the least populous. Siberia contains substantial deposits of natural gas and oil. And then we move on to the Russian Far East, and this area had a higher population during Soviet times where people were paid to move there, kind of like an incentive. You know, the climate's really harsh, so we paid you some extra money to live there. But after the collapse, the incentives dried up and people moved away. And the largest city in the Russian Far East is Petropavlovsk, and it has about 180,000 residents. And then our last region lies outside of the state of Russia and includes the countries of Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. And this little area you can see on the map is situated bordering Turkey and Iran. So these locations were really valuable to Russia. But after the Soviet Union, relations kind of crumbled due to some territorial conflicts and political changes. And so that includes our quick tour of the Russian realm and its regions. And I hope you found something interesting that you weren't aware of before.